everybody. My name is Sheila Scott, and I'm a former English and speech and sometimes dance teacher at Trinity High School. And I started in 1967, and I retired in 2010. And they were wonderful, wonderful years. And imagine life without this place that in many ways saved my life and was excellent for my children. They were a part of, they've always felt like a part of Trinity too. So it's just a thrill to be back here and to see Rose, my next door neighbor, and for many years. And then Julia, my neighbor across the hall from me. And what a wonderful help they were. There always was, and I'm sure there still is, such camaraderie between the faculty and between the students and between the faculty and the students. This is truly, I always say this was my second home, and I'm sure that it's like that for students too. This is a second home for them, and I had a second family here.
Rose hired me.
Back in 1999.
Yes, 99, and Jean Bissett was the principal. And so I've been here since 99, which means I've been here for 24 years. So I was once the newbie, but now I'm also the veteran.
Right, right.
Somehow these two didn't age though, and I did.
Not at all.
Because they still look the same, and I have the white hair of a prophet. But
well, and I'm feeling so empowered and so grateful to be in the company of these amazing women that I've had the pleasure to call colleagues since 1980 when I first started. And Sheila Scott was the first one who came to my room, 205, to welcome me. And I have never forgotten her kindness and the wonderful camaraderie that we've experienced with just the professionalism, the love of literature. Look at all these classic texts, right? Favorites, Crime and Punishment, Moby Dick, Great Gatsby, just having that beautiful experience of sharing our love of literature and learning and travel for many years. So I'm just feeling so grateful and glad to be participating in this moment of nostalgia, reminding everyone of the empowerment that Trinity High School gives to our Blazers.
Part of what we feel, I think, is owing to the Dominican sisters that when I started here, half of the faculty was Dominican sisters, and they were brilliant teachers, loving people, generous as could be, and travel many times with Sister Angel. And so I've been all over Europe because of Sister Angel and going with her, and she knew so much, and she was so wise, but she was wise in many ways. She loved the theater, and so she had, and as did others of us, have theater trips, lots of theater trips, and lots of traveling. It was...
What an inspiration.
Yes,
Sister Angel.
Yes, she was.
Friend, colleague, mentor.
Yep, I always said she was my second mother.
Yes. So I know your favorite text is Cassandra.
It is. It used to be Crime and Punishment when we taught it. I still love Crime and Punishment, but Cassandra by Krista Wolf, fascinating, wonderful text, and so challenging. Like nice, rigorous text for the students to get a little peek into the college experience.
That's great. That's great.
And that's one thing that I believe our English department has always maintained, is that standard of excellence in communication, in learning, in a love of literature that Sheila and Julia can attest to, for sure. And so many great memories.
I would just like to do a little bit of praise for my favorite book, which is Moby Dick. I just thought there was so much in it, and I thought it was a good time for students to learn that they don't have to read every single word, that you can learn. One thing you learn, and if you're going to college, you have to learn this, to do some skimming. You know, if you get to something you think, well, this isn't real important, you can skim through it. And that's a skill to learn. and then maybe someday they'll read word for word every word. But it's a beautiful. I think it's the great American novel. So.
But one of my all-time favorites was Crime and Punishment, and we taught this to seniors, college prep seniors, for several years. And I think I won over some students. You know, not everyone wanted to read a 500-page Russian novel, but some students were truly transformed by what a great book it was. And we got such great discussion, which I feel is the most important thing that students get out of a good English class. It teaches them to think, it teaches them to process and analyze and learn new terms.
The length of Crime and Punishment and the complexity of the wording. The opposite is The Stranger by Camus. Very slim volume, very basic, simple vocabulary, but I always enjoy teaching the challenge of understanding existentialism. That has really been an intriguing discussion every year. The students will read it, they don't quite know what to do with it, but when we're finished with discussions, it's really an enlightening experience for them. And actually we get into some very, very deep reflections on the meaning of life, spirituality, communication, so many different topics.
Which again, it's the discussion that elevates the novel for them to something that they love, as opposed to something they're forced to read.
And you know, Julia, one thing I loved about book discussions was students would bring up things that had never occurred to me. You know, I could see something, oh my gosh, I never saw it that way, but thank you.
Yes,
you know, it's the richness of literature that's important, and my outlook isn't the only one. There are others, and
it's that exchange that is so powerful. I mean, like, there's a real high in having a really great discussion, and I used to think that, you know, parents might be jealous sometimes of the fact that we see a side of the students that they never have the opportunity to see.
It's true.
Which is, you know, they're questing, they're looking for knowledge, they're being analytical and philosophical.
Right.
I mean, such wonderful young philosophers in the classroom. And it's a real privilege to hear the things that they say. So,
inspiring. Those students can be very inspiring.
And for me, it's always been a privilege and a joy to have a career where I'm doing something I love all the time, talking about literature and communication, and I think we appreciate that, don't we? We go into English education because of our love of a favorite text, or an inspirational teacher.
Well, Sheila and I were talking earlier about the fact that when I started here, we all had chalkboards, which, you know, it's so weird to think of a chalkboard as primitive technology, but it was different, and I would write all my info on the chalkboard, and I always admired Sheila because she wrote this beautiful quotation on the board every day. She has like the best handwriting ever.
Remember those.
And I would peek in to see what Sheila's quote was, and I would always feel a little inadequate because I didn't have a quote for my class. And but Sheila was my neighbor directly across. And so one day, it happened to be September 11th, 2001. I came to class that morning and I wrote the date on the board, September 11th, 2001. And I didn't usually write the date on the board. So not long after, probably half an hour into the period, Sheila came to the door, which had never happened during a class. And so I thought, oh no, something has happened to one of my sons. I was really worried about it. And I went to the door and Sheila told me that the Twin Towers had been attacked, that the Pentagon had been attacked, and that it was suspected it was terrorism. What made that really ironic, an English teacher's term, was I was teaching The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. It used to be a senior book. And we were just at the beginning and explaining that terrorists had taken over the US government. And we were talking about terrorism and about the goals of terrorists or how they work or whatever. And then Sheila came and said there was this terrorist act. And later, ironically, one of the students was upset with me because she said, you never write the date on the board. And today you did, as though I had caused everything to happen, you know, by opening up Pandora's box. But I wanted to mention that I had 2 little boys at the time, and now one of them, Graham, who is 24, is my classroom aide. 2 years ago I suffered some vision loss, and so he had always heard about Trinity, just like your family, and had always understood that Trinity was like my second home. And now he is experiencing it as my classroom aide. He's been that for 3 years now, and has become a part of the community. So it's
He's
neat
wonderful.
it's neat how things go full circle.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And ironically, speaking of terrorism in an appropriate read, we were covering Murder in the Cathedral that day, which is about the overthrowing of an archbishop.
As I recall, when Sheila came to tell me, she said, and we're not supposed to tell the students.
Right.
So
Yes.
like you get this terrible news and then you have to go back and teach. Just pretend you didn't hear it.
Yeah, it's one
So
of
that
those
was-
events where we always remember where we were and what we were doing on that day. Really stands out.
I loved doing orchesis, just had the best time teaching students on some of the fundamentals of dance. Certainly wasn't ballet classes, but there are certain fundamentals that are characteristic of all kinds of dance. And
Right. That's what's been so special about being at Trinity.
Students who really,
The
for the
focus.
most part, want to
Right.
learn.
Yeah.
They
And
do.
all of us having been here over several decades, it's that indefinable something that is never really lost, no matter if you get new faculty or new students. There's always that little core energy that Trinity has always
Absolutely.
had.
Absolutely.
And I feel it to this day.
The creativity of the classroom.
Right.
And that's something that I'm grateful I have held on to. I wear a couple of hats here at Trinity, but being IB coordinator certainly has been very fulfilling as an administrative role, but I love being in the classroom, and I couldn't give that up. So I'm grateful for taking part in that adventure with my colleagues of creativity.
So as an alumna, I'm asking, did you guys know when we didn't read the books before class?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We could sense it.
Thank
Thank you for supporting the Trinity mission.